Welcome back to another part of this F1 25 My Team Career Mode. This is part number 27 today for the Italian Grand Prix in Season 2. Last time out, we had a trip through the gravel trap in our first ever reverse Zandvoort race, which, well, it was certainly a roller coaster the other way around, just as it is the normal way. But it was, well, Dutch supremacy in the Netherlands as Max Verstappen went on to win that one. It was a dominant display by Red Bull, and that has made things very interesting for the championship in terms of, well, Mercedes now on the back foot, Red Bull now leading the Constructors' Championship, but you know, there's still a lot to play for. It's still quite close in the Drivers' Championship, and we've seen a lack of consistency from all the top kind of 4 or 5 drivers in the standings. So that's going to be one to watch. And then what's also interesting is going to be maybe from this point onwards, how are the AI going to be? Because there has been a patch since the last time we had an episode. It is version 1.06 that just came out at the start of this week, and the big highlight for the AI for single player players of us on the F1 game is made minor adjustments to front ride height and floor friction levels to reduce the effect that the underbody scraping has on the player's top speed. Intriguing. So this is the kind of, you know, further explanation to this part of the patch. Some players have reported that the computer-controlled opponents, AI, were able to maintain a higher top speed despite equal or similar performance stats to their own car. After investigation, it was determined that the underbody of the player car was experiencing greater friction against the track surface than those of the AI cars. An adjustment was made to ensure that the underbody scraping is now the same between the player car and the AI cars. We expect this change to allow the player car to reach an appropriate top speed, performing as expected across all circuits and weather conditions. So that is very, very intriguing and quite promising as well, because we all well know, especially at certain circuits, you know, Miami, Silverstone comes to mind straight away off the bat. I'm sure there are other circuits that you can probably say in the comments below. But there are certain circuits where it's more prominent. But generally, over the course of the whole game, it's been apparent, even though there's been some amazing improvements, don't get me wrong, to AI on AI fighting, AI versus you, going for moves, lack of trains, actually racing wheel to wheel. Fantastic stuff. But it has been that little bit harder for you as a player, you and I as a player, versus the AI at certain circuits, but also just, you know, maybe in moments where you don't have the tire wear to compensate. The AI seem to have really great straight line speed, acceleration as well out of the corners, which this patch hasn't addressed. This is more about top end speed, but I still think they need to address the acceleration, which I think is more in turn linked to, I have a theory that the AI just don't simulate ERS as realistically as they should, and I think they just have a lot more battery to use, because always when you have enough battery to just dump at the corner exit, you can keep up with them, and there's none of that kind of, you know, shooting past you business. So I think there's actually something there with the battery maybe, but this specifically seems targeted at the top end speed. So at the end of the straight where you top out, hopefully you'll be able to catch up at that point, but I still think this means there'll be a little bit of discrepancy and difference coming out of a corner, but maybe at the end of it you'll be able to catch back up, I hope, in theory. So this is exciting. It's the first real big patch we've had to the AI performance. I guess last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a patch that I didn't mention at the time, by the way, at race starts. So you may have been noticing in the episodes, the race starts from the AI around me have been much better. We've been having a tougher time of, you know, gaining a load of positions at the start, which is realistic. It's better. But, you know, didn't really mention that when that came out, because it was, you know, quite minor compared to the overall game itself. But this one seems a bit more major in terms of hopefully every straight you'll see that difference. Interesting, it was a ride height issue sort of thing and floor friction. I wouldn't even think that would come into play with the physics, but it's just, you know, the more you know, basically. But we'll see how it goes then in this episode. I'm hoping it will be a positive change, but I still have my doubts if it will be the exact remedy we need. But at the same time, you know, it adds that little challenge obviously for us versus the AI, and keeps us on the toes basically. But that's also been a reason why we've been struggling a little bit, you know, in the constructors. In our fights, it's not really a fight, is it? Because now we are just slipping further and further away from Williams on points. And then in terms of performance on the R&D chart, well, this is a kind of, nice indication of where things are at. And Haas, the team below us, are now catching up to us. That is how much we are plateauing in this moment in time. Even though we have now got phase 3 engineering on the, that facility department, we are still waiting for the breakthrough upgrades to come, i.e. with the unlocks for the next R&D upgrades on the car. So we're in a very tricky phase right now where we are just not going anywhere. We are just staying the same. And in Formula 1, if you're not improving, you're going backwards. And this is the biggest indication of it this season. I'm not going to lie. This has been a real challenging part of the season. A challenge like we've not faced before in a My Team series. This time, in previous My Team series, F1 2020, 21, 22, 23, we're fighting more consistently for top 5s, podiums, race wins. Heck, but, in some of those games, by the end of season 2, we're in a title fight. We are nowhere near that on this year's F1 game, and that's a great thing in terms of finally now there's a bit more longevity in this road to glory. From the very bottom, we started with nothing on this team, the lowest settings possible. We've had the sliders put against us where the AI have the advantage there, and it's actually proving finally a bit of a real challenge for us. And so we're having to try and just get through this phase and wait for those upgrades to finally be able to, be bought, basically. But as it stands, we are just going to have to settle with purchasing a minor tire upgrade. For some reason, I thought that tire upgrade was a major one. It's just a minor upgrade, so that won't even really affect things that much, but we've gone ahead and purchased it. But I'm trying to save R&D, of course, because I think the more R&D we have when the breakthrough happens, the better. I assume those upgrades are going to cost quite a lot, so we want to make any kind of impact for the end of the season. We're going to need the R&D points. I hope we can, because it's not looking great now, but I would love to end the season with a really strong kind of, resurgence. Maybe, almost getting the car back to what it was in the first, 5-6 rounds. That would be really, really awesome, but only time will tell. But as we go through, we've got some happy news from the corporate side of things. A brand new secondary sponsor. Always nice to get new sponsors on the car. They don't come very often, but when they do, it's exciting. It just makes the car look a little bit different, and it's just keeping the livery ever flowing and ever evolving race to race, just like they do in real life with certain regions having different sponsors. But we had the development of the Tyre upgrade fail on us, so I'm actually quite glad I did the little trick where you do one development, you don't do dual, because if you can spare it, it's actually better to do single in case they fail, because then it's quicker to get them done and you haven't wasted slots then for anything else. But away from upgrades, we're looking at the engine. Last episode, we had to take some penalties, a 50 place grid penalty to be exact for Tim Tramnitz. This episode, it might be Jensen Button's turn, and, very nicely, that's obviously the driver we're switching to. So it's the driver that we're taking care of for this episode that's having that grid penalty, which is probably the better way to plan it, honestly, because obviously we have a better chance of recovering than probably the AI. I say that, though. Obviously, on this year's game, the AI and the teammate has been very, very solid, in, little spouts. They've really, really impressed me. Obviously, they still have their off days where things just don't go the way or the car isn't performing. And, as a player, you can always try and outdrive a little bit as much as you can. But there are limitations to that. And we've been seeing that. We've been limited to, fighting for only 2-1 points in the last few episodes. But there's still been some insane scraps. Don't get me wrong. We've had to fight hard for those points. Like, those could have easily been 0 scoring point weekend. So we've done well just to even scramble that, which is in its own way. We have to find satisfaction in that. Otherwise, it could turn into a bit of a depressing time if we really compare it to how the start of the season was. But we're enjoying it still. And right now, stepping into the shoes of Jensen Button for the Italian Grand Prix. You may remember in season 1, wasn't exactly happy at the end of this one with an engine failure. Let's hope the same doesn't repeat in season 2.
They call it the Temple of Speed, and the pilgrims have come to worship. It's all about the speed today. Qualifying awaits us. Welcome to Monza. for the Italian Grand Prix.
We won't exactly be going too quick around this circuit on the Saturday then, knowing that we're going to the back of the grid. There's no point, you know, putting more mileage and stress on the engine than needs be. So I've just gone out for one lap just to kind of get the feeler of this car. Obviously, you know, this particular My Team car is different to the one in season 1, so just wanted to get a slight feel for it before we go into the race, kind of diving in head first basically without any proper showing and anger. But we lift off right at the end. We don't want to kind of give away what the pace... honestly, I didn't want to give away what the pace was just to myself, really. Hope in a way, in a sense, because the worry actually was we might be really slow around here because now even Haas are on the back of us. So I just wanted to give a bit of air of mystery for our pace and maybe giving myself some false hope that we can catapult ourselves up the order to recover. But it looks like Ferrari and Leclerc specifically looking pretty fast as they were in season 1. There's something about Ferrari, Leclerc and Monza on the game at least where there's just that extra bit of pace in there, as sometimes there is in real life. And for the Tifosi fans, it's going to be interesting to see if Red Bull carry the same sort of dominance they had at Zandvoort. I doubt it. I think we're going to see Merc and McLaren come back. I mean, McLaren now technically back to the best team on paper, which is crazy because they had such a fall off from the top all the way down to like the 3rd worst team at the start of the season, and they've climbed right back up. So that's going to be very, very intriguing. Let's go to the grid. Let's see how Q2 and then Q3 shook out in the end with the simulation without yours truly at the back of the grid.
A difficult race awaits these drivers here in Monza, but glory awaits too at the Italian Grand Prix. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Albon, Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda and Russell, Lawson, Sainz, Hamilton and Franco Colapinto, Piastri, Stroll, Esteban Ocon and Antonelli, Tremnitz, Aaron, Jack Doohan and Isaac Hadjar, Gasly, Bortoletto, Hulkenberg and Jenson Button. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Well, it's been a long time since I last worked with you. Good to see you again today, Anthony Davidson. So here we are at Monza, Temple of Speed, lovely long straights, and that's it. It's easy, isn't it?
It's a little bit harder than that, Crofty, than you make out. I mean, yes, you do have those long straights, but it's linked by very tight, tricky corners. Big emphasis on braking zones around here as well, particularly into turn 1. You decelerate at the 150-metre board down to the 50-metre board, and you'll scrub off easily over 150 miles an hour. So, yeah, it puts a lot of G-force on the drivers' bodies as they decelerate. And obviously, it throws up a big overtaking opportunity as well come race day.
So unlike last time out in Zandvoort, reverse Zandvoort, I can't really, bank on it being a bit chaotic. It's a reverse track, maybe we can pick up some free positions. This will just be about if we have that pace, to close in the corners. And then it's basically about playing it tactically and making sure we're constantly on the back of cars getting that DRS, because once you break DRS here, it's so difficult. And it's not like an issue with the game specifically. It's always been like that, for the past, 8, 10 F1 games. This place, compared to any other, this is about a game of DRS and keeping with the car ahead of you in slipstream. But we saw off last season on F1 25, it's maybe also become a bit of a tyre wear game. We benefited a lot from doing one less stop in that race until our engine blew up. So let's see what we can do. We start on the medium, so we're going for the one stop onto the hard tyre later. Others are starting on soft, so we could pick up some free positions that way as we go to 5 red lights. And we are underway. It was a Ferrari on pole. The Tifosi will be absolutely absolutely loving that. Leclerc down towards turn 1. Can he maintain P1? Yes, he can, as there's a lot of fighting going on behind him. 3 abreast for the 2 Mercedes and another car on the outside. We're trying to go down the inside of both Audis. This is the tricky part of being right at the back. Monza, it is pretty, everyone for themselves through that first section. Get the elbows out. So easy to make a bit of contact as we swoop around on the left-hand side of 1, 2 V-carbs to try and get up into P17. We have done so. Tim Tramnitz just 2 places ahead in P15, so it's not been the best of qualifying for him, and maybe just shows the car is lacking a bit of pace, and confirmation from the R&D chart as Leclerc leads. Lando Norris in second place in the much improved McLaren now here in this second season. Albon in third, Tsunoda fifth, Verstappen the championship leader in P4. He's come good at the right time, hasn't he? He had a real sluggish start to this season, but he is now coming good just when it matters, and the opposite's happening with his teammate Piastri, the man who is leading Red Bull, leading the Drivers' Championship for so long. He's floundering in P12. What is going on? Very up and down form, podium one race, out the points in the other, and one thing is certain, that Williams are now consistently up there in high points as we are overtaking Doohan nicely for P16. Our rivals, our main in-game rivals, are fighting for top 5s all the time, and we are fighting for not even points at this stage. You can't see me, but I'm forcing a smile right now because it is annoying to see where Williams are. Williams are basically where I hoped we'd be at this point in the series, but it's in a good way, but obviously a challenge for me. It's proving a lot harder. As Colapinto there had a very awkward engine failure into Parabolica, so we had to try and go around the outside of him without scrubbing off too much speed, but it's meant that we're taking a bit longer to catch up to our teammate now. Tramnitz is Piastri's down 1 more position. The Haas, the improved Haas, has overtaken him. Ocon up into a P11. Piastri down to P12, whilst his teammates P3 trying to pull away from Carlos Sainz. Looks like Lando has Verstappen covered and Leclerc has him covered. So maybe 1-2 is already booked in. You kind of get the sense they're trying to pull away from each other and just run away with this and stay in formation, whereas there's lots of fighting to be had from like Hamilton down to P10. Lance Stroll trying to recover. He's now got the best car on the grid. What can the Canadian do? As you see Lawson in the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin that Stroll left or got kicked out of, either way you want to look at it, up in P7, overtaking Tsunoda, as it's Albon versus Sainz, the 2 former teammates now going at it toe-to-toe. Williams versus Mercedes, as Lance Stroll has overtaken Russell in the McLaren. The Silver Arrow will come back at him, but surely even Stroll has to be getting some decent points with now the best car on the grid, as Hamilton is feeling the pressure from Lawson Tsunoda. Kind of showing, really, it's really the individual driver doing a lot of the legwork here in Monza's. Leclerc's way ahead of Hamilton, and we try and go for, an absolute textbook switchback that was from right to left. 2 overtakes for 1. Thank you very much. Up to P13, and we now set our sights on Haas, the team that are gaining on us in the R&D chart. But yeah, I was going to say, Sainz is up there. Russell's not. Leclerc's up there. Hamilton's not. Albon's up there. Tsunoda's not. Stroll's not up there, and Lando is. You're seeing a pattern here in this Italian Grand Prix. It really does seem to be a discrepancy between the teammates, and you're seeing some real great individual performances. Speaking of, though, to be fair, not here at aarava Racing. Tramnitz is keeping up with us. He's overtaking Piastri. This is an absolute howler for the championship contender, the Australian, whereas Piastri, for the start of the season, gone. This is Piastri from season 1. What's happened? At least it means we don't need to worry about him coming back at us, and instead I'm trying to get involved in this fight because I keep seeing Ocon and Antonelli swapping every lap, but we just can't actually fully get with them because I'm using so much battery on the main straight just to catch up to them, and then I'm having to save the battery for the rest of the lap to build it back up. So we're in an awkward kind of yo-yo where we're getting close and then we're not close enough, and then we have to save. It's very, very frustrating because I feel like we should be able to get amongst the Haas cars, but they're actually a little bit quicker than us at this moment in time, as we're also starting to feel the tyre wear a little bit surprisingly, which is weird because in season 1, I can't remember it fully, but did we not go a lot longer than a lot of other cars on the first set of tyres? And before the engine failure, obviously, we were running for a podium because we were doing one less stop. We were doing the 1 stop versus others on 2. So that was with that car. This car should be much better on its tyres, and yet it feels worse. I don't know if it's because the car downforce-wise is better, and so because the car's going quicker through the corners, it's pushing the car down to the road, and it's making the tyre wear go higher. I don't know if that's like an actual simulated thing, you know, with the grid, but whatever the case, on lap 10, we are thinking about coming in as the two Haas again swap positions side by side into the final corner, and yeah, we're going to bail in and come in a little bit earlier, not a lot earlier, but a little bit earlier. We've done well to get this far, but the tyres are absolutely shot. We've got a red icon on the bottom right, the heads-up display there. Yeah, the tyres are in a really bad way. It seems a lot worse than last season, and that's very surprising for all the reasons I just mentioned. Oh.
There seems to have been a bit of a problem removing the left front wheel. We need to try and put that behind us, though, and finish the race strong.
Okay, to add to our misery, we've got a slow pit stop. You know, very, very frustrating to watch that in slow motion, it felt like, on the front left. The tyre not coming off properly, so it's a 4.4 pit stop. So that is going to negate any sort of undercut we get on the Haas, maybe. And it was a powerful undercut because Tramnitz came in a couple of laps earlier than me. He's on a 2-stop, clearly, because he's gone medium, but he is 3.2 seconds ahead of me. So, you know, he is clearly, you know, gained a lot on those outlaps. So, you know, that's the kind of thing I wanted to aim for us versus Haas, but we lost 2 seconds in the pits now. So where we come out, I was hoping was going to be ahead of both Haas. It seems like it may just be one of Antonelli, because I'll be surprised if we can get Ocon as there's a slow Aston Martin. Oh, it's a horrible day in the office for Aston Martin Honda, as it's a double DNF. That's at least one, you know, less pressure of a chasing team in the standings and in the constructors. Yes, that is a worry for me. I am constantly worried about being caught up in the constructors and losing valuable prize money by the end of this season, because we did work so hard at the start of the season, but it could unravel if we're not careful, which is why I really need those upgrades to start coming in soon. But Antonelli gets us. We didn't put up too much of a fight because we know that we can come back at him now with the DRS. He does not have it, and we are going to try and slingshot from him and try and go for a very late lunge on the outside of Ocon. It's going to be a little bit tight, a little bit loosey-goosey in the middle of that section. There's a warning for a collision with Esteban Ocon, as we had to get the elbows out to try and keep him at bay mid-corner. He's got that overspeed. We're banging tyres, and we're going to try and outbrake him and get the rear end wagging out a little bit to block him off to get into that P10. But how long can we stay here? It's probably going to be very short-lived. The two Haas have looked pretty good, actually, and had the measure of me, you know, fair and square in the opening stint. We've now got Piastri also for company. This is going to be a bit painful as the Haas streaks by Ocon. Antonelli past us. Piastri will try it again. So I know we're low battery. We're on none right now. We were medium battery then, but, you know, referencing the patch talk we had at the start of the video, I don't think the patch has done very much to the AI top-end speed or our top-end speed versus the AI. Like I said, obviously, I think it's more to do with the AI having a lot of battery versus the player constantly, or there's something there with the acceleration. I don't think it's just a simple case of some minor floor speed scrubbing. I know I've got very low battery, but I feel like on previous F1 games like F1 2021, the last F1 game that I felt like didn't have that problem, you could easily keep up with cars or not get minced by them on the medium setting. Whereas now, since we've gone back to the complicated switching of modes allowed in the race, the medium setting is just so slow, it seems, compared to the AI, and you don't have enough battery as a player to keep running hot lap all the time, as we may have got done by Ocon. But I do really think we can get Antonelli, obviously inexperienced, lacking a bit of overall rating, and I think eventually he will start to feel tyre wear and he can't keep up this pace. He's got Piastri behind for pressure, and so we do overtake him and we do push away. Lap 18, the gap is 5 seconds to Piastri. He's been fighting Piastri quite hard. Oh no, there's a spinner. It's Lance Stroll, of course. He's spun the McLaren. The McLaren, that's the best car on the grid these days. Now again in Formula One, he has spun it into the gravel, and he was really nowhere near anyone, and he can only blame himself. Oh dearie me. That is frustrating times for the Canadian, and that is going to be frustrating times for McLaren, who now have a car that can fight again. Lando up there in the second place podium, but Stroll now out the points as we get up into P10, trying to keep up with Ocon, but failing at that. Ocon's looking pretty good ahead. Tsunoda, Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz, and Albon fighting for third place. Albon in the Williams at the moment in the final podium spot. Sainz and Verstappen, though, fighting each other a lot for the opportunity to go and attack that Williams car. And Hamilton's floating in the background, just slowly getting better and better into this race. I think Leclerc showing Ferrari do have some race pace. Hamilton just had to kind of find it, and unlock it as they went on through this race. As we've got Antonelli and Piastri fighting. I mentioned they were fighting before. They're fighting again. This is why we've been able to have a good amount of breathing room of over 5 seconds, because Antonelli, the home favourite, obviously, really putting up a show just for P11, really. It's a shame it's not for points, but this is obviously really bad for Piastri, who, second in the Drivers' Championship, wasn't it, going into this race, and now he's going to be taking a massive hit to his championship chances, as on lap 21, Sainz in third place into a podium spot. But now we've got a four-way fight from P3 down to P6, and I get the sense that Lewis Hamilton will be coming through to make multiple overtakes. That Ferrari is looking amazing here on home soil as he goes for the move on Verstappen. He's carefully just slotted in behind Sainz and Albon, fighting each other, as Verstappen maybe overperforming in the first part of that race, because now the late stage he's falling away. It looks like Red Bull, compared to Zandvoort, this really isn't their track, but that's why this season 2 is turning into an absolute banger, because it's so hard to tell what the form is going to be. You go from one race dominating to another where you've been done, and now here comes Lewis Hamilton pulling out for one, maybe two passes, 3 wide into turn 1. Bit of carbon fiber shed, and Hamilton's really in the wars, as there's plenty of contact for the prancing horse, who's going to get past the Mercedes of Carlos Sainz, get in the toe of Albon, and go for the move on the inside. I think, no, ooh, nearly. He nearly switched it from right to left. That would have been amazing, but Hamilton on the charge, up to P4. The Ferrari's looking quick. The reigning champions are looking like it. Finally, they've actually arrived a little bit and look a bit punchy, Leclerc going on for this win, it would seem, with only 4 laps to go, and it now might be a double Ferrari podium, as Hamilton just can't quite get it, but you feel like it's almost inevitable with just the body language of the cars going through on this end of lap 23. Albon defenseless here at this point, as Hamilton gets to the inside. He's not going to make it here. He's having to really wait for the right opportunity, lap 24, but surely this is going to be it. And then it'll be a question of, well, who filters out outside the podium? Is it going to be Albon leading, or will Sainz and Verstappen finally get this annoying Williams? I suspect they're thinking in the cockpit, as Hamilton finally, a lap later, actually gets up into third place. He kind of teased Albon that entire lap, but he's done it, and it's going to be 1-3 for Ferrari. As on the last lap, here we are now. Leclerc, he is dominated here at Monza. Did he not win here, last season, season 1? So it's 2 for 2 back-to-back Italian Grand Prix race wins, and this is going to get Leclerc right back in the Drivers' Championship. I can't believe it. I really thought he was out of it, a couple of races ago, but never say never in Formula 1. Lando Norris second. McLaren are going to be an interesting outside obstacle for all the teams fighting for the championship, and I would be frustrated with only managing P10, but I'm sure this man behind me is even more frustrated. Oscar Piastri was second in the standings. He's going to be way off it now, surely, with no points on the board as Leclerc comes through the final bend, donning the yellow stripe for 17 Constructors' Championships. Leclerc crosses the line again. P1 here at Monza for Ferrari. Great way to celebrate the reigning champs, looking like it again, as I mentioned earlier, as we just limp home for P10. 12 seconds the gap to Ocon ahead as he just pulled away. And to be honest, once I realised there was nothing to fight for, we kind of just went into autopilot mode and just brought it home. Tyre wear has been awful today, a lot worse than it was in season 1 from memory, so I don't know what that's about. We just really need those breakthrough upgrades. We really do. We fought really hard. 75% tyre wear on the front left. We fought really hard again just for 1 point, but this is going to make success even sweeter, I feel, at the end of the season into next, because this has been difficult. This has been, back to like season 1 levels of difficulty, but you have to go through it sometimes.
Charles Leclerc, what a drive, what a victory, he wins!
To come here and take victory as a team today on home soil was so important. You can see how much it means to them. The drivers there doing their part. The team's strategy was perfect as well. And the fans really embraced that. What a great atmosphere we had here today.
So quite amazingly, it is level points between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc going out of this race. That is unbelievable. We have got a fantastic run to the end of the season, and it's Leclerc versus Verstappen. Maybe Russell and Piastri are still in there. Mathematically, they're very much in there, but they're both having such up and down. Those two are fighting each other for the top 2 spots for most of the first part of the season. And all of a sudden, they're both out of it, and they're, Verstappen and Leclerc are in there now. So they're going to be really miffed about that, but there's still time for them to get back into this. Constructors-wise, Ferrari now actually maybe have an outside chance of coming back at Merc and Red Bull to retain their Constructors' Championship. For us, it's looking bleaker and bleaker, and now I'm actually genuinely worried about McLaren catching us. It could be, just like in Season 1, we could be looking ahead, and then all of a sudden we're looking back right at the end of the season for the team behind us catching us up. That's going to be really annoying. We've lost a bit of fan rating bonuses as well, so it's a tough one to take. Hopefully, next episode we can bounce back with, I'm hoping, finally, I know I've been saying it constantly, but finally, purchasing some new upgrades. Till then, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Hit the like button if you have enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.